First rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
I was going to rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been.
Conor McGregor is going to blank Khabib when you guys meet each other.
Stomp on his head as he's unconscious.
Get up, you son of a bitch! Mickey loves you.
I promise I'll work so hard.
God, this is a mistake already.
Fast! Last night I cut the light off in my bedroom, hit the switch, was in the bed before the room was dark.
One crazy his way back. One nods as if to say, come on.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Hi, once again, everybody. I'm Ed Berliner. Welcome into another edition of Randy's Ringside on the Man in the Arena, the fastest 30 minutes in the sweet science. For those of you watching us, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You can catch the shows there. Also, don't forget, once the show is done, it'll be posted up on our YouTube page. You can catch it there. Like it, subscribe to it. Do what you need to do, damn it. And also, don't forget, go to the audio pages because we're up on an audio podcast on 9 major audio podcast platforms. You'll search it out. You'll find out here as we go through the day. For those of you watching us live or else on video, just watch the lower portion of the screen. You'll get all the information on where to find us. I don't know about you, but I just love hearing Mike Tyson all the time just say ruthless. It's one of the best parts of the day anytime you're talking boxing. So let's get right to it. Let's welcome in because we've got a lot to do here today on the fastest 30 minutes in the sweet science. He is the former New York State Athletic Commissioner. You can hear him on Sirius XM with Jerry Cooney, which we'll talk about a little bit later as we go through the show as well. Also, we'll talk about his book. We'll talk about a couple of books and so many things to hit. He is the man, the legend himself, Randy G. The Commish joins us right here on the Man in the Arena, Randy's Ringside. And he is loaded with a lollipop. When are you going to send me like a box of those suckers, man?
A box? I'll send you one. I give my friends
one?
a lollipop.
As long as we've known each other, you're going to send me one lollipop. Oh, that's it. Randy, it's a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. Thanks so much. You can forget everything I just said. See, but the difference is you go for the lollipop. See, I go for Tootsie Pops.
That's what these are.
Okay. See, when you said lollipop, I thought they were just straight. Okay, they are. What's the flavor?
It's cherry. I got to go for cherry.
Okay. See, I'm a chocolate guy. Every time I sit there, it's always got to be the chocolate ones. I'm big fans of that. We'll talk about Tootsie Pop etiquette a little bit later on. Let's go ahead and get started here. When you and I talked earlier in the week, you kept talking about Tim Tsyzu.
Oh, yeah.
He fought this week. Who is Tim Tsyzu and what's the big deal?
Tim Tsyzu is the son of maybe the greatest, not just Australian fighter, one of the greatest fighters ever, a Hall of Famer by the name of Tszyu, who comes from Russia, moved to Australia, lives there, and Tszyu absolutely, just as a 140-pound champion, was a devastating fighter in every single way. He held the title for something like 6.5 years, and then his little baby at his side, Tim Tsyzu, just took an interest in it, and the father tried to talk him out of it. But Tim Tsyzu also had a very nice amateur career. Now he's 25 years old, and he fought the former welterweight champion of the world the other day in a packed stadium in Australia, in Queensland, Australia. Now, Jeff Horn, whom he beat, is the former welterweight champion of the world. Actually, Jeff Horn a few years ago beat Manny Pacquiao. It was a controversial fight. The referee, I thought, really didn't do his job the way he should have, and he allowed Jeff Horn to get away with a lot of dirty tactics. But he wound up beating Manny Pacquiao. And listen, Jeff Horn is a top world-class fighter. He was in way over his head against the undefeated son of Tszyu, Tim Tsyzu, who made a name for himself the other night by stopping Jeff Horn and at the end of the 8th round, just beat him up from the opening bell, dropped him several times. Tim Tsyzu at 154 pounds has shown me, and I think the rest of the boxing world, that he is ready for that next echelon a fight.
So
in
the next
154
echelon of
pounds.
fights, and now that we've seen Tim Tsyzu this week, where do you see him going next and the next couple of fights? Because you're very high on this guy as possibly the next star.
Well, I think a couple of the former champions out there, one of them is Julian Williams. They call him J-Rock Williams, would be one super opponent. I think another former champion, Jarrett Hurd, out of the Philadelphia area, is another possible opponent. And of course, should he get past any one of those big ones, well, then there's Jermell Charlo, one of the Charlo twins, who's a world champion. And I'd like to see, now Charlo is going to be fighting another one of the 154-pound champions to unify the title on September 26th, Jason Rosario. Let the winner of the fight take on Tszyu. And his name is spelled T-S-Z-Y-U, pronounced Tszyu. And you got to remember this name because I think he is going to be, at 25 years old, one of the real futures of this sport.
Which we need more futures. Let's go ahead and then throw ourselves backward, if you will, because it seems like we do this every week, and now there's a new one that we have to talk about. Oscar de La Hoya. I mean, let's face it, Oscar's one of the great names. Oh, look at this. I can already see this where the hands are going to the head. One of the great names in boxing. And Oscar comes out and he says, well, I've looked over the boxing scene these days, and I don't like what I see. He thinks it's going to be better with him in it. I mean, look, I got a lot of respect for Oscar, and I think we all do. Yeah. But this is sure, people are going to buy it, but this is not a great idea for boxing. We're going backward again. He'll find a couple of tomato cans, and really, I don't see this as being anything to get excited about. Just me.
I thought for some reason these comebacks years ago would just kind of fade away. But,
you crazy man, you.
Yeah, exactly. They don't go away because, as I have learned, even when the fighters realize that it's over, they still miss the roar of the crowd, and they're always hanging out in the gyms. Oscar de La Hoya is in excellent condition. He's always working out, and he knows how good he was. And you don't forget that. And when you watch some of these other fighters in weight classes like 147, where Oscar ruled for so long, he was dominant, that doesn't go away.
But and there it is. How good he was is the key. You're exactly right there. So as he looks out over the landscape here and says he doesn't like what he sees, what are we going to see then in a De La Hoya fight when he comes back? Because if you look at the current landscape and the boxers who are there, do you see the young boxers now? Or, he's not going to go for somebody who's one of the best young boxers. He'll start to pick and choose his opponents very well. But do you see him being competitive against the younger fighters, or does he have something? Maybe experience here will pay off.
He's the promoter of the guy that I think is maybe the best young welterweight contender out there, Virgil Ortiz. Virgil Ortiz is in his early 20s. Virgil Ortiz, I think, he's unbeaten, and I think he's going to remain unbeaten. I say that even if he fights guys like Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, Virgil Ortiz will beat them. He's not there yet, and the fight is not going to happen yet. But Virgil Ortiz is that good as a 147-pounder. And yet he's got a promotional agreement with Golden Boy Promotions, with Oscar de La Hoya. How De La Hoya can even think that he could come back, certainly he's not going to fight his own guy because he knows how good he is. He's not going to fight Terrence Crawford. He's not going to fight Errol Spence or Sean Porter or Danny Garcia, who's actually going to be in the ring in November with Errol Spence. He's not going to fight any of those guys. I just think they start thinking, how can I make myself another $2, $3, $4 million? We don't like to think, how can I make my next few million? And that's how they do it. They launch their comeback. And of course, everybody really wants to see them. We know that people buy the pet rock, and that's exactly what people will do. He's going to come back, sell them another pet rock, and people buy the pet rock. They've shown us that over and over for years. Sell me another pet rock, please.
But if you're a fighter, under the Golden Boy Promotions arm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're looking at the guy who is supposed to be really concerned with your career, your future, and your money, what does it say to the young fighters in or those in his stable where the man who's in charge of them is not spending all of his time worried about being concerned about and planning the future of his company and his fighters? To me, that says something a whole lot more to the boxers in the stable.
That could be true, but here's the thing. Most of these promotional companies are run by very bright businessmen. Bob Arum, who runs the biggest, most successful promotional company out there, Top Rank. Bob Arum is about 87 years old. He's a Harvard graduate. And at no point in his career did he ever say, I'm going to put on the gloves and I'm going to fight.
Well, that's just
Bob
it.
Arum,
Is Oscar de La Hoya another Bob Arum? I don't think so.
No, but they're different. And they each promote boxing. One is a Harvard grad. The other is an Olympic champion. I mean, I was at Ringside in Barcelona when he won a gold medal and I sat there announcing his fights, and the judges, the crooked judges over there in Barcelona, were doing everything they could to take it away from Oscar. But he did win the gold medal. He won the gold medal in the Goodwill Games in 1990, the gold medal in the Olympics. He turned professional. He won world titles at 135, 140, 147, 154. I mean, listen, Oscar de La Hoya, one of the great fighters out there. He's a Hall of Famer, no question about it. But these guys miss the roar of the crowd, and they want that spotlight turned back on them just a little bit more. So De La Hoya, he knows what he's doing. He's training. He knows what he's got and what he doesn't have. I assure you, he's not going against a top contender. It'll be like you said, and it's not, no fighter who steps in there is a bum, but they know exactly who they're getting in against. The guy is slower than me. The guy can't punch. The guy's open to my left hook. He's open to my right hand. He can't take a shot. They will pick the right guy. They'll probably put it on a pay-per-view, and Oscar de La Hoya will get himself and Golden Boy Promotions tons of publicity.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, Commish, looking at the boxers and knowing the age of Oscar de La Hoya, scale of 1 to 10, what scale would you see De La Hoya fighting at this stage in his comeback? 6s? Maybe a 7?
No 7s.
All 6. Yeah, 5s and 6s.
Maybe a 6. But basically starting out with perhaps no more than a 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But not moving up much from that. You're not going to see him going up against some young prospect. You're not going to see Bob Arum put him in with his still 17-year-old incredible prospect, Xander Zayas.
Well, that's another great point, because you've got Golden Boy and Arum Productions, the two basically who are the best at promotion and have the best fighters. Where's he going to find boxers? I mean, look, I'll back that up. That's a stupid thing to ask. Of course he's going to find boxers, but is he going to find anybody of any quality? No.
I doubt it's going to be quality. It might be some former champion he could somehow dig up, who also who also wants to launch a comeback.
Careful of your choice of words. You never know, because somebody could be a crypt keeper out there somewhere in boxing, and they could be digging up old boxers somewhere. That's pretty funny, actually.
Listen, it is the toughest thing in the world for any athlete to give it up. I remember back in the day watching the great Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays, who was one of the greatest baseball players I have ever seen. He could outrun the baseball. He could turn in center field and outrun it, and he did on many occasions, catching up to it, making over-the-shoulder catches. But yet, by the time he went to the New York Mets, he shouldn't have been playing anymore, and just basically simple fly balls that he used to just back up on and make the basket catch with. Now that ball is over his head and back to the wall. Yeah. It was pathetic watching.
We all remember, and for those of us of a certain generation, we all remember Willie stumbling on the one play and trying to get back on the ball and just trying to chase it, and it was
sad.
It was terrible. And look, I'm sure people are going to buy this, but if you really want competition, to me, it's going to be very sad. Oscar, just run boxers for a change. Your time is done, and let's not sully a wonderful legacy by taking the odd chance that some tomato can somewhere slips him a right and it accidentally connects, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, we've got the last thought of Oscar de La Hoya being on the canvas somewhere. We don't need that. Let's move on then. A lot of the talk is now all of a sudden, we've heard this all for a while, but we're of course hearing it again now because it's getting closer. Wilder Fury 3. And we've got certain boxers who are saying that, I think Fury's going to take him out. Certain things, Wilder's going to come back. Is it possible, knowing what we've seen from the first two fights, Commish, that Wilder Fury 3, no matter what happens, is going to live up to all this hype?
I don't think it is. I think the second fight, the rematch, remember the first one was a draw.
Yep.
But, of course, Wilder was able to sell it. This was a fluke, and now I'm going to get the rematch. I am going to destroy him in the rematch. And then came the rematch, and it was the other way around, with Fury absolutely destroying the previously unbeaten Deontay Wilder, taking his title, ending his... Wilder has not been able to handle it. He was undefeated. He was a world champion. He was basically unbeatable, and it all came crashing down last February 22nd.
And I don't see him getting any better.
No, that's just it. And I'm always going to be a big fan of Deontay Wilder. But I dread the trilogy fight. Now, the trilogy fight is scheduled for December 19th. And as we sit here doing this show, we don't know what's going to be going on with fans in the arena. We know back in Australia with Tim Tsyzu the other day and Jeff Horn, they did put fans and they packed the place. Why? Because COVID-19 has disappeared over there. They've done the right thing over in Australia. It's basically gone. In the United States, they are still not allowing crowds in places like California, Nevada, New York, and other New Jersey. No fans. And Fury and Wilder basically have said, we're not fighting in an empty stadium, in an empty room.
Okay, good. Then you can wait until 2021, and by that point, we're just going to go ahead and stretch this out, and it will be even less of an exciting fight at that point.
Could be, because I think that Tyson Fury has basically said, well, if Wilder and I can't get it on in December, and we're going to have to wait till 2021, I'm going to take some other fight.
Yep.
And we'll do it.
Well, he's contracted for other fights, isn't he? Isn't he already contracted for a couple of fights in there? At least one.
They're playing with, because, he's got basically an ironclad contract for a rematch with Wilder, but it is to take place within a certain amount of time. And if it doesn't take place, he can actually move on. And Wilder really can't do anything to stop him. Can't say, well, you can't fight until you fight me. And if we have to sit around for another year or two, we'll sit around. Bob Arum, of course, who's the co-promoter of Fury, is not going to allow that.
No.
And he will get Fury, because the more Fury works, the sharper he's going to get. I just don't like Wilder's chances in a third fight. And I do think that Wilder should be working in his gym in private, or however he's doing it, learning to correct all the flaws that he's shown us that he has.
Yeah, but can he? I mean, there's the next thing.
We don't know.
We look at all the flaws that Wilder had in the first and the second fight, and he's a very talented boxer, but I don't see him being able to just turn the switch and all of a sudden change everything, because Fury's still a hell of a fighter. I don't see any changes. I don't see any great improvement to where he's going to come in and just blow Fury over. I don't see it.
Well, as you and I are sitting here right now, we don't know what Deontay Wilder's doing. Is he, if he's doing nothing, if he's just going out and doing a little bit of road work just to keep his weight down and keep his wind up, whatever.
Useless.
Well, that's not good. What he should be doing is watching video over and over of his first two fights against Tyson Fury. He should be working with his trainers on giving that jab of his, that mile-long jab, which basically has no IQ, giving it some IQ, making it a smarter jab, instead of just throwing it for the sake of throwing it. learn what to do with it. Learn how to put the right hand behind it. Learn how to throw the jab, right hand, come back with a hook, body shot, up, down. He doesn't have those kind of boxing smarts. And if he doesn't get them, he's going to lose the same way in the third fight. But we don't know. He's been very quiet up to this point. Is he working like never before? We will see if indeed this trilogy fight ever comes off.
Last shot we got to talk about here, and I know you're going to have the author of this book on your show. Drew Bundini Brown has to be one of the most unique individuals in the history of boxing, for all of the great fighters that he was around, for all of the great moments that he was involved in. See, and of course, if there's a book, Randy's got the book immediately, so he's got to show it, even though we went to all the great, Randy forgets that this is a professional show. See, and we go to the great lengths, as those of you watching on the live show and on the tape show know. We have the book graphic.
What?
All
you
presented.
Got it?
See, that's what we do in this. That's because this is real television. This is not this namby-pamby, sidewinder, clickbait kind of internet stuff. This is real produced TV. So let's move on then to Drew. What don't we know? I mean, if there's a new book about somebody, and we see this all the time, where great books are written, but what stories are left to tell about Bundini Brown that we don't know?
I knew Bundini Brown, Drew Bundini Brown. I knew him as Ali's more or less hype man. He's the one who came up with float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Yep.
Your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see. And he was the man who hyped it up. He was the man who just got Ali jacked up in the dressing room for every fight in training camp. And that's who I thought Bundini was. And he used to come up to my office at Ring Magazine all the time and kind of just play with Bert Sugar and myself. And we enjoyed him. But I thought he was nothing more than a hype man. This book spells out everything about Drew Bundini Brown, from his upbringing. He was born in 1928 in Sanford, Florida. All the problems that he went through as a young black man in the South. How he just migrated to Harlem, New York, and how he just basically no education, and he educated himself. And what a smart man he became. And it brings in the story of his son, Drew III, and his incredible relationship, Bundini's relationship with Muhammad Ali, stuff that most of us didn't know, and just how much he brought out of Ali. And I know, because I had a friendship with Ali years after he retired, I know that Ali had a love-hate relationship with him. He couldn't stand the fact that Bundini sometimes would be stepping out of line. Bundini had an alcohol problem, and Ali just didn't know how to deal with that. But Bundini did, and he was able to check it. He was not a thief in any way. I always thought he might have some really bad qualities about him. He didn't. When he came up to my office, the guy that we saw in my office at Ring Magazine, I really wish I could be with that guy now and talk to him more as the grown-up I've become. And
don't go there. Don't be a grown-up yet. We don't want you to be a grown-up. Well, is it fair to say, though, that while the first thoughts of Ali for many of us go to Angelo Dundee and Ferdy Pacheco, two people who I knew wonderfully, who were just tremendous human beings, and I'm so fortunate I got to know them, and you certainly knew them very well. But despite the fact that he had these people around him, Herbert Muhammad also was there as part of the influence around him early, that without a Drew Bundini Brown, we may not have seen the really great Ali, the really showman type of Ali that we saw.
Oh, absolutely. Because while he had that in him, he still could be a little bit laid back. He was almost timid in front of some of his opponents, but Bundini brought that out in him. And Angelo Dundee did his part in the gym. Ferdy Pacheco did his part as Ali's doctor, kind of a confidant to him.
Yeah.
But when it came to Bundini Brown, he was everything from his gopher to the guy that when Ali really wanted to talk about things, when he wanted to talk about race relations, when he wanted to talk about how things were going with the Nation of Islam, because Ali went through a whole array of growing up with the Nation of Islam and how they turned their back on him. All the time, right there was Bundini Brown. And the Nation of Islam actually had a lot to do with getting rid of Bundini Brown at one point because he refused to become a member of the Nation of Islam. He was actually a Jewish guy. He married a Jewish girl, and basically he became a Jew. His son was brought up as a Jew. His son was bar mitzvahed, and that's what he believed in. And Muhammad at first didn't get it, but then as Muhammad left the Nation of Islam, and in the beginning, there was so much hatred Muhammad had for certain groups. Muhammad became a guy with nothing but love for everybody, and much of that was nurtured by Bundini Brown. That's what makes this book so incredible.
It's a great book. I'm going to have to pick this up because anytime I can dig into that time in history is always a great point to me. Finally today, Lollipop Etiquette from the Commish, because Randy Gordon is known for his love affair with, there you go, and not just lollipops, but we're actually talking about here Tootsie Pops. So what is the etiquette here, Commish? Because it would seem to me that you have to be careful because sometimes you're talking, you're emoting, and you just can't have the lollipop hanging out of your mouth. There has to be. Look, it's not Bert Sugar's cigar. Let's put it, or is it? I mean, am I missing something here? Is it the perfect replacement for Bert's cigar, which I swear to God, he smoked the same cigar for 45 years. Same one.
Nah, I got to tell you, a lot of people do think that. Remember, I worked side by side with him up at the Ring Magazine offices, and my office stunk of cigar. Those things were lit. And he was always walking around with a cigar. And I actually started to do this because it annoyed him. He used to say, here, take one of my cigars. And I don't want one of your cigars. I said, I'll take my lollipops. He said, you and your lollipop. And then while he was smoking his cigars, we could be somewhere, I would just pull out the old Tootsie Lollipop and pop it in.
So Tootsie Pop etiquette is more or less a way to avoid the stink of the cigar.
Well, back then it was just to kind of playfully piss off my buddy Bert Randall Sugar. But, I don't bite my nails or anything. I have no habits except for this. And I do enjoy these. And I will eat one a day. I don't eat 10 a day. And I must tell you,
good man. Gotta watch that sugar intake, man.
Yeah.
At our age, we got to be very careful. So, just in case everybody is wondering, next time we get together, I am going to have some Tootsie Pops available because I've done this show with Randy so many times, and I've never had any Tootsie Pops, and I'm feeling like I'm missing something here. Okay, few ideas.
I'm going to send it.
Few ideas not to miss. First of all, don't forget Randy Gordon hosts Randy's Ringside on Facebook. It is at Randy Commish Gordon. You can make sure and catch his episodes there. It's really fun to just sit there and watch him go through this with all of his friends. Reminder again that Randy, of course, is the author of Glove Affair, which is my lifelong journey in pro boxing. We want to make sure that everybody remembers that. It is the perfect book, if you will, it's the perfect book for the holidays coming up, everybody. That's right. Don't forget, Christmas will be here any day now, and you want to make sure that you get in line for the perfect book, and that is Glove Affair. You gotta call your publisher right away, and I gotta do those spots for you as much as I can. Don't forget, too, that you can catch me co-hosts with Jerry Cooney at The Fights on Sirius XM Mondays and Fridays, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Channel 156. Did I get it right this time?
You got it absolutely on the money.
I wanted to make sure I got it right because it's always been my mistake to get it wrong. That's what happens far too often here. And on Twitter, you can make sure to catch Randy there at Commish Randy G. And, of course, you can catch him here as well. So you got all these wonderful places that you can find him. Commish, always a pleasure, my friend. I will make sure that I have Tootsie Pops for us next time. There it is. I'm all choked up because now I get a possibility of having a Tootsie Pop. Take care, partner. We'll talk to you real soon.
Don't bite your Tootsie Pop.
How many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop?
A lot.
A lot?
A lot. I don't know how many. 50,000 maybe?
Well, come on. The owl told us that it was only 3, remember? 1, 2, 3. Crunch.
But don't fight
3. All right, Randy. Take care, buddy. Randy G, don't forget to catch him here as well. Reminder once again, catch us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And don't forget, you can catch us too on YouTube, also on all the major audio podcasts. For today's ending of the show, I promised you something special, and that is we hear all these wonderful boxers and all these great boxers of all time. They have nicknames. And you might want to wonder how they find their nicknames, how they get their nicknames. There is only one man I would go to who can explain it all in absolute perfect detail. For Randy Gordon, for everybody here, hang on, you'll catch it here momentarily. I'm Ed Berliner. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Randy's Ringside on The Man in the Arena. This time around, the fastest 30 minutes in the sweet science. Until we meet again, rock on, true believers. See ya!
You need U-V, elemental P, Q, S, R. You need a nickel. You need a nickel. You need a nickel? I can't get in my pockets. You need a nickel. Nicholas. Oh, you need a nickname. A nickname. Yeah, that's it. If you want to become a fighter. If you want to become a fighter, you need a good nickname. Okay, Jerry Cootie. You ever hear Jerry Cootie? He's got a good nickname. They call him Gentleman. Gentleman. Start your engines. They call him Gentleman. And, do you know why? You know why they call him Gentleman? You know why? I have no fucking idea why. That's a good nickname. And then there's Marvelous. There's Marvelous Marvin Hagler. You know why they call him Marvelous? Because he looks good. That's why they call him that. I have a nickname. They call me Jeff. What? I'm sorry. I thought I heard somebody calling me. Anyway, they call me Jeff. What? I'm doing a commercial. You're probably looking at me saying, who the hell are you to tell me about the fight game? Well, let me tell you right now, I've had alto training. I've had a lot of training. I'm sorry, I spelt it wrong. Alto, a lot. Okay, I fucked up. But anyway, I have had a lot of training. I was a professional fighter at one time. I had what? What? What the fuck do you want? Oh, I'm talking to you, right? I'm doing a commercial, right? Yeah, believe me, I had 6 professional fights, of which I lost 11.